Well, to discuss the psychology of our political leaders and the nation, I'm joined by Jonathan Freedland of The Guardian and the author Lionel Shriver. Very nice of you to come in. For me, the thing has been that Brexit always sounded like an administrative nightmare, and actually, right at the heart of this, as those speeches showed, are these very human qualities of intransigence or dedication. I wonder how you read how central those characters of our leaders are to where we are now.
I think they've proved bizarrely central, and it's actually what makes the story compelling on an audience level. I even found my personal relationship to Theresa May starting to change over the last few months, and I started out with a kind of resignation, not my type quite, that I wouldn't want to have over the dinner, but okay. Then I got exasperated, and then only recently I started feeling traces of dislike. And I think that's a consequence of, this famous stubbornness of hers has morphed into bullying. And I think that's backfired. I think that's one reason that the vote yesterday was so terrible.
Bullying is a very strong word, isn't it?
It is a strong word. I think your point, though, I was thinking about that, about the what could have been an administrative task. It changed with that decision, which was born in a way of hubris, to call an early election. Once it was a hung parliament, then the personal skills were going to become vital, because it was going to be then about reaching across party lines and winning alliances. And she didn't, and I think this is the reason why Tom Watson's speech hit home, even though it was in that very sort of sotto voce style, is because she doesn't have those skills. It does require a personal skill set of empathy and of emollients, and she doesn't have that. And suddenly, if you're in a hung parliament situation, it becomes important. But this thing about the stubbornness suddenly became bullying, I think it's an interesting trait with her, because it's her strength is her weakness. So the strength is that she is resilient. It's the word you hear about her all the time. How does she do it? None of us could cope with that. And that should be a positive, like you said, determination, and yet it translates in her case into inflexibility, and that's fatal in this situation.
But when you talk about charisma, this is really interesting, because for decades we've had, the sort of the charisma of Blair, or the sort of charm of Cameron, or however, and people have always said that's not what you want in a politician. Actually, you want somebody who just gets on with the job. Now, she has been that person. She sort of set herself as not being a Blair, not being a Cameron. She set herself on as the sort of hard-working woman who was just going to get the job done. Are you now saying that's not enough?
Well, actually, the irony is that she was elected as head of the party because she was boring, right? But she became a terrible negotiator because she was boring, by which I mean she couldn't think outside the box. She is not an imaginative person. She's not an imaginative games player. She capitulated on the terms in relation to the EU at every point, rather than questioning them and saying, what divorce bill, right? And she immediately starts haggling over the numbers.
My colleague John Grace at The Guardian christened her the Maybot, and the reason why that is registered isn't just because her mannerisms are quite robotic. It's rather something deeper, which is she seems to be somebody who once is given an instruction, once she is programmed, she just continues, like the sort of Terminator, forward to obey that instruction. And
isn't she likely to do it again?
She's doing it now.
She's going to keep pushing for the deal again.
That's right. So she did it at the home.
And just spin the coin, because on the other side we've got Jeremy Corbyn, who again is often known as principled to the point of dogma, unchanging to the point of the same intransigence. But do you see the same qualities in him mirrored?
The big similarity, I think, is the strength is again the weakness. So the strength in his case, the reason why a whole lot of his supporters almost love him, is because he is consistent. Unlike other politicians who waver and change with the wind,
he's not a focus group politician.
He's ideologically consistent. But flip that coin, and it becomes stubbornness, inflexibility, and in his case, ideological dogmatism. So in both cases, you have these two figures facing each other, whose very strengths are also their weaknesses.
Although he's not that stubborn on Europe. I mean, yes, he has that Eurosceptic background, but I don't get the impression that he cares very much one way or the other about Brexit. All he cares about is getting into 10 Downing Street, and he'll use Brexit if he can to get there. So that if things go a certain way and it looks as if a people's vote would get him into government, then he'll go with it. He doesn't really care
So
otherwise.
would you say that is not principled then? Would you call him a principled politician?
Well, his brand is that he's super principled, and that's brilliant for him because it makes people believe he's almost not a politician. As it happens, he's proved to be the arch triangulator. You know, that was always the word people used to apply about Blair, that he triangulated between left and right. Corbyn has triangulated between Remain and Leave and actually pulled it off. The one quality which I wouldn't have thought of about a contrast about the two of them that has come to me only recently is that Theresa May, I now think of as a very tribal politician. The Conservative Party is her. She is absolutely a believer in the Conservative Party, perhaps almost more than anything. And he, Jeremy Corbyn, is very different in that he is prepared, has no problem with defying his party. In other words, most Labour people are Remainers. He doesn't care, because when he was a rebel, he was at odds with most of Labour MPs, and he's at odds with most Labour MPs now that he's the leader. That's a big difference between them.
Let me end with one thought, which is that people tell us we get the politicians, the leaders we deserve. What do you think we have done, or what do you think our position as a nation? No, I don't mean that in a critical way, but I mean, are they the leaders of our age? Are they the only ones for our age?
I just have to say that she was the perfectly wrong person to negotiate on behalf of the Leave vote. And if we were going to be pursuing this sincerely, we needed a real Leave supporter to go out there for it. And that's not what happened. And so we know the popular vote did not get the leader that it deserved.
We have this odd foible in British politics, I think maybe in all politics, of reacting to the previous situation. So she was chosen as the un-Cameron, and Corbyn, is the un-Blair. And so you're always left with this reaction, and in the end it's not enough to be just the opposite of the leader who was dominant before.
Great to hear from you both. Thank you very much.